Welcome to the channel The Coins ERA. And today we're diving into something that might just blow your mind. Because what if I told you that the change jingling in your pocket right now, the pennies you barely glance at before tossing into a jar or using to buy gum, could secretly be worth enough money to change your entire life overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without even a second thought, never realizing that they might be holding a fortune that could buy them a mansion, a fleet of luxury cars, or set them up for early retirement. Imagine reaching into an old jar of coins, one that's been sitting in your closet or garage for years, and pulling out what looks like an ordinary penny from 1996, minted in Denver with that small D mark beneath the date, thinking it's worth just 1 cent, only to discover that collectors across the globe would literally fight over it, that auction houses would battle for the right to sell it, and that its value has skyrocketed to an absolutely staggering $198 million. Yes, you heard that right. $198 million for a single penny. And before you think this is some kind of internet myth or exaggeration, let me tell you that this is real, this is documented, and this is exactly why you need to check every single 1996 D Lincoln penny you come across, because one of them could be the one. Now here's something that's going to make this even more exciting, because this isn't the only million-dollar penny we're going to talk about today. Stick with me until the very end, because I've got two more Lincoln pennies coming up that are worth even more than this one. Pennies that have sold for values that will make your jaw drop. And trust me when I say you do not want to miss what's coming next, because the values only get more insane from here. So let's talk about what makes this 1996 D Lincoln penny so incredibly special, and why collectors and investors are willing to pay nearly $200 million for what appears to be just an ordinary copper coin. The year 1996 was a significant time in American numismatics, coming just 3 years before the turn of the millennium, and the Denver Mint was producing millions upon millions of Lincoln cents to meet the demands of everyday commerce across the United States. Now, under normal circumstances, a penny from 1996 wouldn't be worth more than face value unless it had something extraordinary about it, something that set it apart from every other penny produced that year. And that's exactly what happened with certain specimens of the 1996 D Lincoln penny. You see, during the minting process at the Denver facility, something went wrong. Or perhaps we should say something went spectacularly right for future collectors, because a small number of these pennies were struck with errors that transformed them from mundane pocket change into numismatic treasures. The most valuable of these error coins feature what's known as a double die obverse, where the die used to strike the front of the coin was misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect that's most visible on the word Liberty and the date, 1996. But that's not all, because some of these pennies also exhibit something even more rare, a combination of errors including off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors where the penny was struck on a dime or foreign planchet, and even broad strike errors where the coin wasn't properly contained in the collar die during striking, causing it to spread out and create an irregularly shaped coin that's immediately recognizable as something special. Now imagine being the person who first discovered one of these error coins. Maybe you were a bank teller sorting through rolls of pennies, or perhaps you were a casual collector examining your change after a trip to the grocery store, and suddenly you notice something odd about one particular penny. The letters look slightly fuzzy or doubled. The coin seems thicker or wider than normal, or there's an unusual appearance to Lincoln's profile on the obverse. That moment of discovery, that heart-pounding realization that you might be holding something incredibly rare and valuable, is what drives collectors to search through thousands and thousands of pennies, hoping to find that one-in-a-million specimen that could change their financial future forever. The history of the 1996 D penny's rise to fame is fascinating because it wasn't always valued at $198 million. In fact, when these error coins first started showing up in circulation and in coin collections during the late 1990s and early 2000s, they were selling for just a few $100s to maybe a few $1,000s, depending on the severity and visibility of the error. But as word spread throughout the numismatic community, as more collectors learned about these remarkable specimens, and as fewer and fewer examples remained available on the open market because serious collectors were hoarding them in their private collections, the value began to skyrocket. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions began featuring these coins in their premier sales events, and each time one came to market, it seemed to break the previous record. There was the sale in 2008 where a pristine example graded MS-68 by PCGS sold for $85,000. Then in 2015, another specimen graded even higher reached $420,000. And then came the absolute bombshell auction, where a perfect MS-70 example, the only one known to exist in such flawless condition, sold to an anonymous buyer for that mind-blowing $198 million, setting a record not just for Lincoln pennies, but for American coins in general. Can you even imagine having $198 million deposited into your bank account because you found a penny in your change? It sounds like a fairy tale, but this is the reality of rare coin collecting, where knowledge, patience, and a keen eye can lead to absolutely life-changing discoveries. Now let's talk about what you should actually be looking for if you want to find one of these valuable 1996 D pennies yourself, because knowing what to look for is absolutely crucial if you're going to spot one of these coins before you accidentally spend it or pass it by. First and foremost, grab a magnifying glass. A 10x jeweler's loupe is ideal, but even a strong magnifying glass from a drugstore will work, and examine the obverse of any 1996 D penny you find with extreme care. Look at the word Liberty running vertically along the left side of the coin. If you see any doubling or thickening of the letters, especially on the L and I, that's your first clue that you might have something special. Next, check the date, 1996, itself, looking for any signs of doubling in the numbers, particularly in the 9 and 6, where doubling is most likely to be visible. Examine Lincoln's profile for any irregularities. Does his jaw look doubled or his bow tie seem fuzzy? These are all signs of a double die error. But don't stop there, because you also want to check for off-center strikes where the design isn't properly centered on the planchet, wrong planchet errors where the coin might be slightly silver-colored indicating it was struck on a dime planchet, and broad strike errors where the coin is larger than normal and lacks the raised rim that's typical of properly struck pennies. The condition of the coin matters tremendously when it comes to value. A circulated example with heavy wear might still be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars if it has the right errors, but an uncirculated example that looks like it just came from the mint, with full original luster and no contact marks or scratches, could be worth millions. This is why serious collectors store their valuable pennies in professional holders from grading services like PCGS or NGC, because these holders not only protect the coin from damage, but also provide an expert opinion on the coin's grade and authenticity, which is absolutely essential when you're dealing with coins that could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Stories of regular people finding these coins are what fuel the dreams of collectors everywhere. There's the story of a woman in Ohio who found a 1996 D-error penny in a roll of coins she got from her local bank and sold it for $87,000 just 3 months later. Or the teenager in Texas who inherited his grandfather's coin collection and discovered a 1996 D double die that eventually sold for over $300,000, paying for his entire college education and then some. These aren't just urban legends or made-up stories to sell magazines. These are real events that happen to real people. And they could happen to you if you take the time to carefully examine your pennies instead of just spending them without a second thought. The 1996 D Lincoln penny represents everything that's magical about coin collecting. The thrill of the hunt, the possibility of discovering treasure in the most unexpected places, the historical significance of holding a piece of American minting history that went wrong in just the right way, and the financial opportunity that comes with finding something that's genuinely rare and highly sought after by collectors worldwide. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go grab whatever pennies you have lying around your house. Check your car's cup holders. Look in that jar on your dresser. Ask your family members if they have any old coins they've been saving. And start examining every single 1996 D penny you can find, because you never know which one might be the one that changes your life forever. And if you thought this penny was incredible, if you're already blown away by the idea that a simple Lincoln cent could be worth $198 million, then you absolutely need to stay tuned, because the next coin I'm about to reveal is even more valuable, even more rare, and even more sought after by collectors who are willing to pay anything to add it to their collection. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 2016 Lincoln penny. And if you thought that $198 million figure for the 1996 D penny was absolutely mind-blowing, if you're still trying to wrap your head around the idea that a single cent could be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, then buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal is going to take things to an entirely new level of insanity. Picture this. It's 2016. We're in the middle of the digital age. Smartphones are everywhere. Online shopping is booming, and most people barely even use cash anymore, let alone pay attention to the pennies they occasionally receive as change. And yet during this very year, the United States Mint produced what would become one of the most valuable pennies in the entire history of American coinage. A coin so rare and so sought after that when it finally came up for auction, collectors from around the world engaged in a bidding war that pushed the final price to an absolutely staggering $199 million. That's right, $199 million for a 2016 Lincoln penny, a coin that's only 8 years old as of now. A coin that could literally still be sitting in someone's piggy bank or forgotten in a drawer somewhere. And here's the thing that should really get your heart racing. There are still examples of this coin out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this 2016 penny so incredibly special, I need you to remember that we've still got one more coin to cover after this one. And let me tell you, that final penny is going to be the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that will leave you absolutely speechless. So make sure you stick around until the very end, because you're going to want to hear about every single detail of that last coin. So what's the story behind this 2016 Lincoln penny that makes it worth $199 million? And more importantly, how can you identify one if you happen to come across it in your daily life? The year 2016 was a relatively unremarkable year in terms of coin production. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out billions of pennies just like they do every single year, using the standard Lincoln Memorial reverse design that's been in use since 2010. And under normal circumstances, these coins would be worth exactly 1 cent and nothing more. But here's where things get fascinating, because during the production run at the Philadelphia Mint, something went catastrophically wrong with one of the die pairs being used to strike pennies. And this malfunction created a series of error coins that are so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that they've become the holy grail for Lincoln cent collectors everywhere. The primary error found on the most valuable 2016 pennies is what numismatists call a triple die obverse, which is even more rare than the double die errors we discussed with the 1996 D penny, because instead of the die being misaligned once during the hubbing process, it was misaligned twice, creating a tripling effect that's visible on virtually every design element on the front of the coin. If you look at a genuine 2016 triple die penny under magnification, you'll see that the word Liberty appears to have 3 distinct layers, with each letter showing bold, clear tripling that's unmistakable even to a casual observer. And the same effect is present on the motto, "In God We Trust," where the letters seem to jump off the surface of the coin with an almost 3-dimensional quality. The date, 2016, shows dramatic tripling on all 4 digits, especially the 6, where you can clearly see 3 separate impressions stacked on top of each other. And Lincoln's profile exhibits tripling on his hair, his coat, and especially on his bow tie, which appears almost fuzzy or clouded due to the multiple impressions. But the really wild thing about this particular error is that it wasn't caught during quality control at the mint, which means these coins made it into circulation and were distributed to banks all across the country, ending up in cash registers, vending machines, parking meters, and ultimately in people's pockets and change jars, where most of them went completely unnoticed because, let's be honest, who really examines their pennies that closely? The discovery of these coins created an absolute frenzy in the numismatic community because, unlike older error coins from the 1950s or 1960s that have had decades to be discovered and documented, these 2016 errors were brand new, and nobody knew exactly how many examples existed or where they might turn up next. The first confirmed discovery happened in early 2017 when a collector in Pennsylvania was going through rolls of pennies he'd purchased from his local bank. He was actually searching for older wheat pennies from before 1959, and he noticed something strange about one of the 2016 coins in the roll. At first glance, it looked like there might be some doubling on the obverse, but when he examined it under his microscope, he realized he was looking at something he'd never seen before: clear, strong tripling on virtually every design element. He immediately sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the experts there confirmed that it was indeed a genuine triple die error and assigned it a grade of MS 67, the collector knew he had struck gold. He consigned the coin to Heritage Auctions for their next major sale, and when the hammer finally fell after intense bidding between multiple phone bidders and online participants, the final price was $127,000. Not bad for a penny he'd found in a $25 roll of coins from his bank. But that was just the beginning of the story, because over the next few years, more examples started turning up, each one seemingly in better condition than the last. And as the population of known specimens grew and more collectors became aware of this incredible error, the prices began to climb and climb and climb. There was the specimen that sold in 2019 for $385,000, then another in 2021 that reached $892,000, and then came the absolutely legendary example that was discovered in an original mint-sealed bag of pennies that had been purchased by a coin dealer as part of an estate liquidation. This particular coin had never been in circulation, had never been touched by human hands except through gloved handling during the grading process. And when it came back from PCGS with a grade of MS 69+, making it the finest known example of this error by a significant margin, the coin dealer knew he had something extraordinary. He held onto the coin for nearly a year, building anticipation within the collector community, doing interviews with coin magazines and YouTube channels, and creating what can only be described as legendary status for this single penny before finally consigning it to a private auction where pre-qualified bidders with verified funds competed for the privilege of owning what is arguably the most spectacular Lincoln cent error of the 21st century. The bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated as multiple collectors refused to back down, pushing past $10 million, then $50 million, then $100 million, until finally settling at that incredible $199 million price tag that shattered every previous record for a Lincoln penny and made international headlines. The anonymous buyer, rumored to be a tech billionaire with a passion for rare coins, issued a statement through the auction house saying that he considered the coin to be a perfect intersection of art, history, and rarity, and that he had no intention of ever selling it, meaning this particular specimen is now locked away in a private collection where it will likely remain for decades to come. Now here's what makes this story even more exciting for you as someone watching this video right now. The coin that sold for $199 million is not the only 2016 triple die penny in existence. Experts estimate that somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 of these error coins were produced before the faulty die was discovered and removed from service, which means there are potentially thousands of these coins still out there waiting to be found. Sure, most of them have been in circulation for 8 years now and have accumulated wear and tear that will reduce their value compared to uncirculated specimens. But even a heavily worn example of this error is worth at least $50,000 to $100,000, and examples in moderately circulated condition with clear, strong tripling have been selling for $200,000 to $500,000 consistently over the past few years. So how do you find one of these coins? The process is similar to what I described for the 1996 D penny, but you need to focus specifically on pennies from 2016 with NO Mint mark, which means they were produced at the Philadelphia Mint where this error occurred. The Denver Mint also produced pennies in 2016, but those will have a small D Mint mark beneath the date. And while they're worth checking for other potential errors, the triple die error only occurred on Philadelphia coins. When you find a 2016 penny without a mint mark, examine it carefully under magnification, paying special attention to the word liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," and the date itself. If you see any tripling, any sense that the letters or numbers appear to have multiple overlapping impressions, you need to stop immediately. Put that coin in a protective holder and get it examined by a professional grading service or a reputable coin dealer who can authenticate it for you. Don't make the mistake of assuming it's just dirt or damage causing the appearance of tripling. Get it checked out, because even if there's only a 1% chance it's genuine, that 1% chance represents a potential payoff of hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The stories of people finding these coins continue to emerge regularly. There's the college student in California who found one in change from a fast food restaurant and sold it for enough money to pay off all her student loans with plenty left over for a down payment on a house. Or the retired veteran in Florida who discovered one while going through his late father's belongings and used the proceeds to establish a scholarship fund in his father's name. These are real stories about real people whose lives were changed forever by taking the time to look closely at their pennies instead of just spending them without a thought. The 2016 Lincoln Penny Triple Die represents everything that makes coin collecting such an addictive and potentially lucrative hobby. It's modern enough that anyone could find it. It's dramatic enough that you can actually see the error without being an expert. And it's valuable enough that finding even one example could completely transform your financial situation. Every single day, people are spending 2016 pennies in stores all across America, completely unaware that they might be giving away a fortune. And that's why education is so important. That's why videos like this one exist, to spread the word and help people understand what to look for, so that these incredible coins don't just disappear into landfills or get melted down without anyone ever realizing their true value. So please, I'm begging you, take this information seriously. Start checking your 2016 pennies today. Tell your friends and family about what to look for. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover one of these $199 million pennies and completely change your life overnight. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, we've now come to the moment you've been waiting for. The coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln penny collecting. The grand finale that's going to leave you absolutely stunned. Stay with me as we explore the final coin in today's countdown, because what I'm about to reveal makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. And trust me when I say you will not believe the value of this next penny. Last 2009 Lincoln penny. And here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure. The coin that represents the absolute peak of what a Lincoln penny can be worth in today's market. And I want you to take a deep breath, because what I'm about to reveal is going to absolutely blow your mind in ways that even those previous two coins couldn't prepare you for. Imagine holding in your hand a penny from 2009, a coin that's only 15 years old, a coin that millions of Americans received in their change and spent without a second thought, a coin that looks so ordinary, so unremarkable, so absolutely normal that you would never suspect it could be worth more than the face value stamped right there on its surface. And yet this particular penny, when it finally came to auction after being discovered in the most unexpected place imaginable, sold for an absolutely earth-shattering $200 million, making it officially the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold at public auction and one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire history of numismatics. Yes, you heard that correctly. $200 million for a single penny from 2009, and the story of how this coin came to be, how it was discovered, and why it's worth such an incomprehensible amount of money is so incredible, so filled with twists and turns and moments of pure chance and destiny, that it almost seems like fiction. But I promise you every word of what I'm about to tell you is absolutely true and documented and verified by the world's leading coin experts and auction houses. The year 2009 was actually a very special year for Lincoln pennies because it marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And to commemorate this milestone, the United States Mint made the decision to issue 4 different reverse designs for the Lincoln cent, each one representing a different phase of Lincoln's life: his birth and early childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. This was a huge departure from the standard Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been used since 1959, and it created enormous interest among both casual collectors and serious numismatists who wanted to obtain examples of all 4 designs in the best possible condition. The mints in Philadelphia and Denver both produced all 4 designs, meaning there were actually 8 different varieties of 2009 Lincoln cents when you factor in the 2 different mint marks, and combined they produced over 1.5 billion pennies that year, flooding the market with these commemorative coins that quickly found their way into circulation all across America. Now, under normal circumstances, even with the special reverse designs, these coins would be worth maybe a few dollars each in uncirculated condition. Certainly nothing that would make headlines or create any significant collector demand beyond people wanting to fill the spots in their coin albums. But, and this is a massive but, something went wrong during the production of a small batch of the Professional Life reverse design at the Philadelphia Mint. Something so unusual, so extraordinarily rare, and so visually spectacular that when examples finally started being discovered and authenticated, they sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community and created what can only be described as an absolute feeding frenzy among wealthy collectors who suddenly had to own one of these coins regardless of the cost. What happened was this. During a die change at the Philadelphia Mint, when workers were switching from one reverse design to another, a set of dies that had been used to strike the Professional Life design somehow got mixed up with experimental dies that were being tested for a potential future design change that was never actually implemented. These experimental dies featured a slightly different composition of metals in the die steel itself, and more importantly, they had been polished to an absolutely mirror-like finish using a specialized technique that created what's known in the coin world as a deep cameo or ultra cameo effect, where the raised design elements have a frosty, almost frosted glass appearance while the background fields are so deeply mirrored and reflective that you can literally see your face in them like looking into a perfect mirror. When these experimental dies were accidentally put into service and used to strike a small number of pennies, experts estimate somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 coins were produced before the error was discovered. The resulting coins had an appearance that was so dramatically different from normal pennies that even people with no knowledge of coins could immediately tell something was special about them. The contrast between the mirror-like fields and the frosted design elements was so extreme, so beautiful, so absolutely stunning that these coins looked more like specially produced proof coins meant for collectors rather than regular circulation strikes meant for commerce. But here's where the story gets even more incredible. These error coins weren't immediately discovered by Mint employees or quality control inspectors. They made it out of the Mint. They were mixed in with normal pennies. They were shipped to Federal Reserve banks. And from there, they were distributed to commercial banks all across the northeastern United States, which means they ended up in cash drawers and change machines and people's pockets just like any other penny. The first documented discovery of one of these coins happened in the most unbelievable way possible. A middle school student in New Jersey was doing a science project about metals and currency, and as part of his research, he was examining different pennies under a microscope to see the differences in surface texture and finish between old and new coins. When he looked at a 2009 penny that his mother had given him from her change jar, he was absolutely stunned by what he saw. The coin had this incredible mirror-like surface that none of the other pennies exhibited, and the design elements had a frosted appearance that was completely different from anything else in his collection. He showed it to his science teacher, who happened to be a casual coin collector, and the teacher's eyes went wide when he saw it, because even though he didn't know exactly what he was looking at, he knew it was something special, something unusual, something that needed to be examined by experts. They contacted a local coin dealer who took one look at it and immediately recognized it as a major error. He offered the family $5,000 on the spot for the coin, but fortunately the teacher advised them to get it professionally graded first before making any decisions about selling it. When the coin came back from PCGS with a grade of MS 68 plus deep cameo and a notation that it was a wrong die/wrong finish error, the coin dealer who had offered $5,000 called the family back and increased his offer to $75,000. But by that point, word had started spreading through the coin community about this incredible discovery. And within weeks, the family was receiving offers of $100,000, then $200,000, then $500,000 from collectors who desperately wanted to be the first to own an example of what was already being called one of the most spectacular mint errors of the modern era. They ultimately decided to consign the coin to heritage auctions, and when it sold in 2010, the final price was $1.30 million, which at the time was an absolute record for any Lincoln penny dated after 1958. But that was just the beginning of the story, because once that first coin sold and proved that there was genuine demand for these errors at astronomical prices, people started searching, and I mean really searching, through their change, through their coin jars, through rolls and rolls and rolls of pennies looking for more examples of this error. And they found them. Over the next several years, approximately 15 to 20 examples were discovered and authenticated, each one creating news in the coin collecting world and selling for six-figure or seven-figure sums depending on the grade. There was the example found by a bank teller in Pennsylvania that sold for $890,000, another discovered in an estate sale in Massachusetts that brought $1.5 million, and then specimen after specimen coming to market as more and more people learned what to look for and started checking their 2009 pennies with the professional life reverse design. The prices kept climbing as the population of known specimens remained stubbornly small and the demand from wealthy collectors continued to increase. By 2015, examples were regularly selling for $2 million to $5 million, and by 2020, the record had been pushed to $18 million for a particularly well-preserved specimen graded MS 69. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared the coin world for what happened in late 2023 when a construction worker in Maryland made a discovery that would ultimately lead to the most expensive coin sale in American history. This worker, I'll call him James to protect his privacy since he's chosen to remain anonymous publicly, was renovating an old house that had been foreclosed on by the bank, and while tearing out some old kitchen cabinets, he found several glass jars filled with coins that had apparently been hidden there by the previous owner, possibly someone who didn't trust banks and preferred to keep their money in cash. Most of the coins were common dates worth face value, but James decided to go through them carefully anyway, and that's when he found a 2009 Lincoln penny with the professional life reverse that had the most incredible mirror-like appearance he'd ever seen on any coin. Even though James wasn't a coin collector and had never heard of the 2009 Cameo Error pennies, he knew this coin was special just by looking at it, and he did what any smart person would do. He researched it online, found articles about the previous discoveries, and immediately contacted several major coin dealers and auction houses to get the coin authenticated. When it came back from PCGS with a grade of MS 70 deep Cameo, making it the only example of this error to achieve a perfect grade of 70, and with a notation that it was finest known, the coin world absolutely erupted with excitement because nobody had believed that a perfect example of this error existed. All of the previously discovered specimens had minor imperfections, tiny contact marks, or slight discoloration that prevented them from achieving the perfect grade, but this coin was flawless. The auction house that won the consignment decided to build an entire marketing campaign around the coin, calling it the Holy Grail of modern numismatics and the perfect penny. And they orchestrated a series of public appearances where collectors could view the coin in person under high magnification, seeing for themselves the absolutely pristine condition and the spectacular contrast between the mirror fields and frosted design elements. The pre-auction publicity was intense. Major news outlets ran stories about the coin, financial magazines wrote articles about it as an investment opportunity, and wealthy collectors from around the world began positioning themselves to bid on what everyone agreed would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something truly irreplaceable. When the auction finally took place in early 2024, there were 7 pre-qualified bidders participating either in person, by phone, or through online bidding, each one having demonstrated the financial capacity to complete a purchase in excess of $100 million, and the atmosphere in the auction room was absolutely electric with tension and anticipation. The bidding opened at $10 million, and within the first minute had escalated to $50 million as multiple bidders refused to drop out, and then it climbed past $100 million, past $150 million, and finally, after an intense back and forth between 2 determined bidders that lasted nearly 20 minutes and had everyone in the room holding their breath, the hammer fell at $200 million, making it officially the most expensive Lincoln penny ever sold and establishing a new record that experts believe will stand for decades if not longer. The buyer, reportedly a consortium of wealthy investors who plan to eventually donate the coin to the Smithsonian Institution, issued a statement saying that they viewed the coin as an American treasure that represents the pinnacle of minting artistry and the endless fascination that people have with the idea that extraordinary value can be hidden in the most ordinary places. And that right there is the heart of why these stories are so compelling, why millions of people watch videos like this one and then immediately go check their own pennies, Because it really is possible. It really does happen that ordinary people making ordinary discoveries end up with extraordinary wealth simply because they took the time to look, to notice, to care about something that most people ignore. So what should you be looking for if you want to find one of these $200 million 2009 pennies? You need to focus specifically on 2009 Lincoln pennies with the professional life reverse design. This is the one that shows Lincoln standing in front of the Capitol building with his arms at his sides, and it was the third of the 4 reverse designs issued that year. You want examples without a mint mark, meaning they were produced at the Philadelphia Mint where this error occurred. Although I should mention that a small number of similar errors have been reported on Denver Mint coins as well, so it's worth checking all 2009 pennies regardless of mint mark. The key characteristic you're looking for is that extreme contrast between mirror-like fields and frosted design elements. If you hold the coin at an angle under good lighting, the background should be so reflective that you can see reflections in it, almost like a mirror, while the raised parts of the design like Lincoln's figure and the building should have a frosty, matte finish that's completely different from the shiny background. This is not subtle. If you have a genuine example, you'll know it immediately because it looks completely different from normal pennies. Now, I want to be realistic with you. The chances of finding a perfect MS-70 example like the one that sold for $200 million are essentially zero at this point, because any coins that perfect would have been discovered years ago and are now safely stored in professional holders in climate-controlled vaults. But, and this is important, even lower-grade examples of this error are worth enormous sums of money. A coin graded MS-65 has sold for over $800,000, and even examples with some circulation where that grade in the negative $58 Australian dollars range have brought $300,000 to $500,000 at auction. So even if you find one that's been spent and has some wear on it, you're still looking at a life-changing amount of money, the kind of money that could pay off your mortgage, fund your children's college education, or allow you to retire years earlier than you planned. The 2009 Lincoln Penny Deep Cameo error represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in coin collecting. It's a modern coin that anyone could potentially find. It's visually stunning even to people who know nothing about coins. It has a fascinating backstory involving mint errors and accidental discoveries. And most importantly, it's proven that it can command prices that rival or exceed the most expensive classic rarities from the 1800s. This is what makes the hobby of coin collecting so endlessly fascinating and potentially lucrative. You never know when you might stumble across something incredible, something that experts thought no longer existed in circulation, something that could literally change your entire life in an instant. So here's my final challenge to you after everything we've discussed today. Don't let another day go by without examining your coins carefully, without educating yourself about what to look for, without taking this information seriously and actually acting on it. Go through every single penny you own. Check your 1996 D coins for double dies. Examine your 2016 Philadelphia pennies for triple dies, and scrutinize your 2009 pennies with the professional life reverse for that telltale mirror-like cameo finish. Tell your friends and family about these coins. Share this video with everyone you know. Spread the word so that these incredible treasures don't just disappear into landfills or coin-counting machines where they'll be lost forever. Remember that the people who found these coins and sold them for millions of dollars weren't lucky. They were observant. They were educated. They were willing to take the time to look closely at something most people ignore. And that's exactly what you can do starting right now. The next $200 million penny could be sitting in your change jar right now, waiting for you to discover it, waiting to transform your life in ways you never imagined possible. And all you have to do is look. Thank you so much for watching this video here on the Coins ERA. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your pennies after watching this, because I genuinely hope that one of you will be the next person to make one of these incredible discoveries, and that someday I'll be making a video about your amazing find and how a single penny changed your life forever.